In order to understand both the core value of reflection and discernment and the importance of reflection and discernment, I think it's important to know just a little bit about St. Ignatius of Loyola. So he is the founder of the Society of Jesus, also known as the Jesuits, who are the order of Catholic priests that sponsor Rockhurst University. And so 500 years ago, Ignatius took a cannonball to his legs, shattered one, injured another, and he entered into a year-long convalescence. And so that was a really transformative period in his life. He found, much like we have during the pandemic, that he had a lot of time on his hands for extra things, right? So he spent his time daydreaming and reading, but he only had 2 books available to him. One was The Life of Christ, and the other was The Lives of the Saints. And so he found that when he would daydream about the life that he formerly aspired to, he was on track to become a knight, that he would find this sense of satisfaction, but it was fleeting. And then he'd find when he would daydream about the lives that he was reading about, that the sense of satisfaction and peace and joy lingered longer. And so in that, we see the core value of reflection and discernment, right? This reflecting on both our experience and on possibilities, but then discernment, which is that paying attention to where are those points of joy and peace and love and greater life, which Ignatius would call consolation, that he believed really was of God, and then those points of less satisfaction, less peace, more disquietude, which he would call desolation. And really that discernment invited us to pursue those consolations. And so ultimately for Ignatius, that meant surrendering his sword and taking up the life of a pilgrim. But for those of us on college campuses, for our students, it can mean many things, right? Ultimately, it's about uncovering that which makes your heart come alive, the best use of your gifts, and where those can be applied in the world where there is a need.
At Rockhurst, we try to get students to engage in activities of reflection and discernment so that they can build off of the content that we're discussing in class and figure out how that information relates to their own lives. So, for example, in my courses in theology and religious studies, we may be discussing something that is part of their own religious tradition or something that's part of a different religious tradition that they're not familiar with. In both cases, I try to get them to wrestle with ideas that might be challenging to them and think about why these religious beliefs of others, why these practices that may seem so different to them, so new to them, can be the closely held beliefs of millions of people throughout the world and throughout history. So I think that reflection and discernment really helps them develop a sense of empathy that can be so valuable in the global context today. I will often use this phrase that's common within religious studies, that to understand one is to understand none. And I ask students to think about what that means to them. And really what the saying is getting at is that if you don't have an experience outside yourself, don't encounter difference within your life, it's hard to understand your own perspective on things.
I sort of see it like as if it's an equation. Reflection plus discernment to me equals the ability to grow and evolve into the best version of yourself. Ever since I was a kid, I've sort of been taught indirectly to always reflect and discern. There was never really a name for it. It was always about, okay, learn from your mistakes and keep moving forward, So it's really important to look back, think about what you can do better, and then move forward from that.
You can never reflect too much. There's gonna be times in your life where you will be really, really busy, and you might be really, really successful at the same time. But it's still important to take time out for yourself, reflect and say, why am I here? Why am I doing this? What am I really passionate about? Truly taking time to evaluate what you're doing, the purpose behind everything that you're doing, and the people that you do it with is how I want to go forward with this past Rockhurst. Reflection and discernment is so important to me at this point that I cannot and will not imagine my life without it, which is a blessing.
Without thinking through, without internalizing, without really trying to wrestle with and grasp the notions that they're learning as part of their college education, it's hard to put into action anything else. It's hard to go out and be a contemplative in the world. It's hard to go out and develop wisdom. It really starts with trying to understand yourself and trying to understand your own place in the world. That can then be empowering as students move out and encounter others.